Welcome the anointed ones. Some people don't survive the valley survives them. Read that again slowly, because there's something unsettling about a person who walks through years of pressure, betrayal, loss, isolation, and mental warfare, and somehow comes out standing like nothing managed to stick. Not bitter, not broken, not begging for sympathy. Just calm, collected, functional, almost annoyingly okay. That kind of recovery confuses people. It messes with their heads. Because according to everything we've been taught about pain, you're supposed to fall apart. You're supposed to carry visible damage. You're supposed to limp through life with emotional bandages and a sad backstory people can pity. But you didn't. And that's what makes your story feel unreal to them. Statistically, most people who go through prolonged trauma don't bounce back quickly. Studies show that chronic stress and repeated emotional blows usually lower confidence, reduce decision-making ability, and keep people stuck in survival mode for years. In simple terms, most people don't come out sharper, they come out smaller. Yet somehow, you came out clearer, stronger, more focused, like the chaos actually organized you instead of destroying you. That's the part nobody can explain. People look at you sideways like you skipped a chapter, like you secretly had help, like maybe you're pretending, because in their mind, there's no way someone goes through that much and still laughs normally, thinks straight, and rebuilds life like it's just another Tuesday. It almost feels illegal. They expect dramatic music and a tragic documentary voiceover every time you talk about your past, and you're just standing there like, yeah, it happened anyway. That calmness unsettles people more than tears ever could. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You didn't heal the way people think. You didn't light candles, chant affirmations, or wake up magically positive one day. Half the time you were just tired, confused, and figuring things out with zero instructions. Some days your grand recovery plan was literally, well, I guess I'll just not quit today. Not exactly a movie scene, but somehow those small, stubborn decisions stacked up, day after day, step after step, until one morning you looked back and realized you had already crossed the valley without even announcing it. No parade, no applause, just you. Still here, still functioning, still building. And that's why people keep staring at you like you're an unsolved equation. Because what broke others refined you, what buried others built you. And now everyone's quietly thinking the same thing. How did you walk through all that and come out like this? This isn't luck. This isn't coincidence. And it definitely isn't normal recovery. There's something different about the way you survived. Something deeper, something almost unnatural in its precision. And in this video, we're going to break down exactly what really happened to you in that valley. Not the motivational version, not the soft version, but the raw mechanics of why you made it out when logic says you shouldn't have. Number one, you didn't escape the valley. The valley rejected you. Most people tell survival stories like they fought their way out with pure strength and willpower, like every day was some dramatic battle and they just happened to win. That sounds nice, but it's not what really happened to you. If you're honest, there were days you weren't strong at all. Days you were tired, confused, numb, and barely doing the minimum. You weren't climbing mountains. You were crawling through dust. There was nothing heroic about it. And yet, you're still here. That's the strange part. Because if survival depended only on strength, you should have fallen apart a long time ago. The truth is darker and more unsettling than motivation speeches make it sound. It's not that you overpowered the valley, it's that the valley couldn't finish you off. The same pressure that crushed other people somehow failed to close in on you. The same betrayals that made others bitter didn't poison you completely. The same isolation that made people lose themselves didn't erase you. It's almost like the environment tried everything it had, and none of it stuck. Think about it. People have gone through less and never recovered. Less heartbreak, less rejection, less chaos. Yet they stayed down for years. Meanwhile, you took hit after hit after hit, and instead of collapsing permanently, you kept adapting, quietly, stubbornly, without even realizing it. That's not normal resilience. That's incompatibility with destruction. The valley had a design. It was built to break spirits, shrink confidence, and make people settle for small lives. But you didn't shrink. You didn't become easier to control. If anything, you became sharper, more aware, harder to fool. The more life pressed you, the more defined you got, like pressure carving stone instead of crushing it. At some point, the struggle stopped shaping you and started failing against you. The chaos couldn't digest you. The negativity couldn't rewrite you. The pain couldn't convince you to disappear. So it did the only thing left. It let you go. Not because you were the strongest person alive, but because you simply refused to become what the valley wanted you to be. And when a place designed to break, people can't break you, it doesn't keep you. It spits you out. Number 2, your recovery terrified people because it broke the laws they trust. People don't actually get uncomfortable when someone struggles. Struggle makes sense to them. Pain makes sense. Failure makes sense. Those things fit the rules they grew up believing. If life hits you hard, you're supposed to stay down for a long time. You're supposed to look damaged. You're supposed to move slower, think smaller, and talk about your past like it permanently stole something from you. That's the script everyone recognizes, but you didn't follow it. And that's what unsettled them. It wasn't that you went through hard things. Plenty of people do. It was how fast you got your footing back, how you didn't stay bitter, how you didn't turn every conversation into a pity party, how you quietly rebuilt your life without making noise about it. One day you were struggling, and then suddenly you were steady again, focused again, functioning like someone who never fell apart. To most people, that doesn't look inspiring. It looks suspicious, because your recovery breaks a rule they depend on. See, people secretly comfort themselves with this idea. If something really bad happens to me, at least I'll have a reason to give up. Pain becomes their future excuse. Trauma becomes a permission slip to stay stuck. It protects them from responsibility. Then you show up. Same chaos, same losses, same unfair treatment, and somehow you're still moving forward. Now their excuse doesn't work anymore. Your existence quietly exposes something they don't want to face. Maybe they're not as trapped as they thought. Maybe they're choosing fear. Maybe they're choosing smallness. That realization stings. So instead of clapping for you, they stare. They question. They downplay your story. They say you got lucky, or had help, or it wasn't that bad. Anything to make your comeback look ordinary. Because if your recovery is real, then their limitations aren't permanent. And that's terrifying. You didn't just heal. You disrupted the story they tell themselves about what's possible. Number 3, you stopped asking why me and started observing like a scientist. When the worst of life hit, most people spiral into why me endlessly, repeating it like a broken record until it eats away every ounce of energy. They want answers, closure, someone to blame, or some cosmic explanation that never comes. That's normal. That's human. But somewhere along the way, you stopped asking. You didn't surrender to despair. You switched modes. You became a quiet observer. You watched everything unfold like you were taking notes on a case study. Every betrayal, every failure, every setback became data. You noticed patterns nobody else cared to see. You watched people's reactions, timing, and habits. You tracked energy shifts, moments of weakness, glimpses of truth. You cataloged how pain affected others versus how it affected you. You didn't just endure chaos, you studied it. The valley became your lab, and you were the scientist nobody saw coming. That shift changed everything. While people reacted impulsively, emotionally, and often destructively, you reacted strategically, quietly, and with foresight. You didn't waste energy on anger that didn't serve you, or pity that didn't solve anything. You analyzed, predicted, and adapted. And in that adaptation, you created invisible armor. Not the kind you wear for show, but the kind that quietly protects you from repeating the same mistakes, the same traps, the same pain. Most people survive by brute force. You survived by understanding. You didn't just react, you calculated. You didn't just recover, you redesigned your responses, your mindset, your life. Every observation became a tool. Every painful lesson became a blueprint. You became someone who could navigate the valley without being consumed by it. And that's why your survival seems almost unexplainable. You weren't stronger than everyone else. You weren't luckier. You were sharper. You learned faster. You saw deeper. While others screamed at life and waited for answers, you studied life until it revealed its secrets to you. That quiet intelligence, that relentless observation, is what allowed you to emerge whole, clear, and untouchable in a way most people never even understand. Number 4, you lost your need to be saved. The moment that changes everything isn't when someone finally offers help. It's when you realize nobody is coming. Most people survive because they cling to the idea of rescue, waiting for someone to notice their struggle, someone to step in, someone to fix the chaos. That hope feels comforting, but it also traps them. It keeps them dependent, keeps them fragile, keeps them vulnerable. You, however, reached a point where that hope ran out. You stopped waiting. You stopped expecting someone to swoop in and repair what life had torn apart. And in that void, something extraordinary happened. You became entirely self-reliant. Your survival no longer depended on chance, luck, or external approval. Every choice, every move, every small victory became yours, and yours alone. This shift doesn't feel dramatic at first. It doesn't happen overnight. It's subtle, almost quiet, but it's deadly effective. Once you stop needing someone else to save you, fear loses its grip, panic loses its power, and the valley that once had you cornered suddenly becomes manageable. You stop asking for shortcuts, for crutches, for mercy. You start relying on your own instincts, your own judgment, your own unshakable inner strength. And what's terrifying to others is how unstoppable it makes you. People can't understand someone who doesn't depend on them, who doesn't need validation, who refuses to be rescued. They try to offer advice, guidance, even pity, but it bounces off. You've crossed a threshold that most never reach, a level of independence where your actions are driven by necessity and clarity, not desperation or hope. This doesn't just build resilience, it creates a form of quiet power. You can walk through chaos with calm precision because your foundation is unshakable. You survived the valley not because someone saved you, not because luck was on your side, not because life got softer. You survived because you became your own savior. That is a level of strength that leaves people staring, baffled, and quietly terrified of what you might do next. Number 5, your empathy didn't die. It evolved into discernment. Pain has a way of changing people, but most think it either hardens them or leaves them bitter. That's the story you hear over and over, and it's mostly true for the average person. But for you, something far deeper happened. Your empathy didn't vanish. It didn't get buried under anger or fear. It transformed. It became precise, sharp, and selective. You still feel deeply, but now you feel with awareness. Now you sense motives, intentions, and hidden agendas before they surface. You see not just people, but the patterns of their behavior, and that makes you untouchable in ways most people will never notice. Before the valley, you might have cared blindly. You gave trust too easily. You forgave too soon. You let people in before they deserved access to your life. That openness got you hurt, humiliated, or used. Pain forced a change. It forced refinement. Your empathy evolved from unconditional giving into measured understanding. You still feel for others, but your heart now comes with a filter, a built-in radar that separates who deserves it from who doesn't. You don't harden, but you no longer risk yourself for people who can't handle your truth. That evolution terrifies people more than anger ever could. Someone who cares deeply yet refuses to be manipulated or drained walks through life like a mystery no one can crack. They can't predict you, control you, or take advantage of you. They might try to test you, push your limits, or exploit your compassion, and you recognize it instantly. You respond with precision rather than panic, with strategy rather than impulse. Your empathy is now a weapon of discernment, and the beauty of it is subtle. Most people look at empathy as a weakness, a soft spot, a vulnerability. You turned it into clarity. You survived the valley not by shutting down emotionally or becoming numb. You survived by evolving your emotional intelligence to a level where you see truth before it's spoken, detect danger before it arrives, and navigate people like you're reading an open book they don't even know they're in. Your heart stayed alive, but your mind became untouchable. That's how you came out stronger, wiser, and far beyond anyone's expectations. Number 6, you became comfortable being misunderstood. Most people live their lives desperate to be understood, constantly explaining, justifying, and defending themselves. They crave validation, needing someone to recognize their pain, their effort, their worth. That need drives them to exhaustion. But the valley taught you a lesson few ever learn. People will misunderstand you no matter what you do, and trying to control that perception is a waste of energy. At some point, you stopped caring about their understanding, and that change shifted everything. Being misunderstood isn't pleasant, but it's powerful. Once you accept it, you stop giving your energy to people who will never see the truth. You stop chasing approval. You stop contorting yourself to fit into stories that aren't yours. That freedom is deadly effective, not in a violent sense, but in the quiet, unstoppable way of someone who refuses to be limited by other people's opinions. Before this shift, misunderstandings could crush you. They could make you doubt yourself, rethink your choices, or pause your progress. Now they roll off. People can talk about you, judge you, twist your actions, and misinterpret your intentions. And it doesn't shake you. Their confusion becomes irrelevant because you're no longer performing for their comprehension. You operate on your own clarity, not their approval. This comfort with being misunderstood changes the rules of interaction. People who try to manipulate or gaslight you discover it doesn't work. Those who expect an apology for simply existing or for acting differently than they imagined find a wall they can't break. You move through life with an almost untouchable energy because you are no longer tethered to anyone's perception. What makes this extraordinary is subtle but life-altering. The valley stripped away the need for external validation. You didn't harden emotionally, you didn't shut down, and you didn't isolate in bitterness. You evolved. You became someone whose actions are guided by truth and self-respect, not by the interpretations of others. And in a world that thrives on misunderstanding, that independence, that calm in the face of judgment, makes you unshakable and almost impossible to contain. Number 7. You developed a relationship with solitude that others fear. Solitude is something most people avoid. They fill their days with noise, distractions, and other people because being alone forces confrontation with themselves. The thoughts they ignore, the fears they hide, the parts of life they've been pretending don't exist. Most can't sit still long enough to notice their own patterns, their own weaknesses, or their own truths. But the valley forced you into solitude, and instead of collapsing under it, you learned to thrive within it. You stopped running from yourself and started paying attention to the one person who matters most, you. This relationship with solitude isn't loneliness. Loneliness feels weak. It feels empty and desperate. What you discovered is that being alone can be a source of clarity, strength, and strategy. In solitude, you could think without interference, plan without pressure, and observe without distraction. The chaos outside no longer dictated your internal state, because you had cultivated a world inside yourself that could stand firm, no matter what the outside threw at you. People notice this. Most fear it because they can't handle someone who is comfortable being alone. They are drawn to constant validation, companionship, and noise, and they misread your independence as arrogance or mystery. They see that you can go days without needing approval or company, and it makes them uneasy. They don't understand that the valley didn't just test your limits. It taught you to walk through life without dependence, without panic, without seeking rescue. Being at peace in your own company transforms everything. You became self-sufficient emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. You no longer overreacted to drama because you were never lost in it. You no longer needed constant reassurance because you could reassure yourself. You became untouchable not through aggression or anger, but through a quiet, grounded presence that only someone who truly knows themselves can possess. The solitude that terrifies others became your sanctuary. In it, you sharpened your mind, clarified your purpose, and built a foundation that no chaos could shake. What most people fear, you mastered, and that mastery is what allowed you to survive the valley when most would have fallen apart. Number 8, your pain burned off every fake identity you were wearing. The valley doesn't just test strength, it strips everything away. Most people enter it carrying layers of who they think they should be. The person who's liked, the person who's successful, the person who smiles through everything. Those masks protect you in comfortable environments, but when life collapses, they burn away. Every lie you told yourself, every image you projected, every perfect version of you that the world expected, it all melts under pressure. Pain doesn't negotiate. Pain doesn't care about appearances. It exposes truth. What makes your story extraordinary is how you handled it. Most people panic when their identities are threatened. They cling harder to the masks, fight to maintain illusions, or sink into shame. You didn't. You stood naked before your own reality, stripped of pretenses, and survived. That process wasn't glamorous. It was exhausting. It was ugly. It forced you to confront parts of yourself you ignored or denied for years. But instead of breaking you, it forged clarity. The valley forced you to meet yourself exactly as you were, not the polished version, not the one built to impress, but the raw, unfiltered truth. In that confrontation, you discovered something rare: freedom. The masks that once dictated your choices, your actions, and your relationships no longer exist. You stopped performing for approval, for attention, for love that wasn't real. You became who you actually are. That version isn't flashy, it isn't loud, but it's unshakable. It doesn't bend to expectations, gossip, or judgment. It operates on authenticity, precision, and survival. The valley burned off everything fake because it had to, and in that fire you emerged lighter, sharper, and far more dangerous in the quiet way that authenticity allows. The people who thought they knew you don't recognize you anymore, because this new version can't be manipulated or underestimated. You didn't just survive pain, you used it to reconstruct yourself at a level no one else would dare attempt. The masks are gone, and the real you is untouchable, unreplicable, and undeniably alive. Number 9, you stopped fearing loss because everything already left. Most people live in constant fear of losing something: a relationship, a job, respect, or comfort. That fear drives decisions, traps minds, and limits potential. But the valley has a way of stripping everything away, leaving no illusions, no safety nets, and no halfway points. By the time you reached the bottom, there was nothing left to lose. Every attachment, every expectation, every sense of security had already disappeared. That's where true freedom begins. When you've already lost the things most people panic over, fear becomes irrelevant. Decisions stop being guided by worry and start being guided by clarity. You move differently, you act differently, you take risks other people would never dare because there is no threat left that can hold you back. The people who once had power over your thoughts, emotions, or life no longer do. Their opinions, judgments, and manipulations simply bounce off because there's no foundation left for them to dig into. What makes this shift extraordinary is that it changes your approach to life at a fundamental level. You stop shrinking to fit in, stop bending to please, stop waiting for permission to exist fully. You realize that attachment is a choice, fear is a choice, and control is always temporary. Once that's internalized, you operate from a space of independence, audacity, and calm. You can rebuild, reimagine, and reconstruct life from zero without the chains of what used to matter holding you back. People around you notice this without fully understanding it. They see someone who's unshakable, someone who walks through uncertainty without hesitation. They assume it's luck or confidence or some secret advantage. But what really happened is far simpler. You've already faced the void and came out whole. That emptiness isn't weakness, it's power. The valley didn't just take from you, it rewired you. By losing everything, you lost fear itself, and that loss became your most dangerous asset. A foundation so solid that life's storms now pass around you without touching your center. You move through existence untethered, unstoppable, and free in a way that most will never experience. Number 10. You learn to read silence like language. Most people hear words, but very few truly listen. Most hear explanations, excuses, and stories, but they miss what isn't being said. The valley taught you a different way of hearing. You didn't just survive by reacting to noise, chaos, or obvious threats. You survived by noticing what people avoided saying, what energy lingered in the air, what was implied but never admitted. Silence became your guide, your warning system, your map. In that place, words were unreliable. People lied, people minimized, people blamed. But silence never lies. A pause before a sentence, hesitation in a gesture, avoidance in a glance. Those were signals that revealed far more than spoken words ever could. You learned to catch the micro moments that expose intentions. You learned that what isn't said often carries the weight of truth, betrayal, or opportunity. And once you learned that, you were no longer reacting blindly. You were anticipating, calculating, and navigating life like someone who could see the moves before they happened. This skill is subtle but devastatingly effective. People around you talk, argue, and plot, assuming their motives are hidden, assuming they're unreadable. But you notice the tension, the omission, the hesitation. You can sense manipulation, envy, or deception before it fully manifests. You don't have to be loud or confrontational to control outcomes. You simply understand the unspoken language everyone else ignores. What makes this extraordinary is how it amplifies your survival instincts. Danger, dishonesty, and hidden threats lose their power because you see them coming. You don't need to guess. You already know. And at the same time, you can read opportunities, loyalty, and truth in ways most people overlook, letting you align with what actually serves you without wasting energy on illusions. The valley forced you to listen where others couldn't. You didn't just develop a skill, you developed a sixth sense for human behavior. Silence, which terrifies some, became your weapon, your compass, and your advantage. That's why, after the valley, nothing slips by you anymore, and nothing catches you off guard. Number 11, you no longer chase happiness, you chase stability. Most people measure life by highs and lows, constantly chasing the next thrill, the next recognition, the next rush of validation that makes them feel alive. Happiness, they believe, is the goal, but the valley teaches a far harder truth. Happiness is fleeting, unreliable, and often dependent on factors beyond your control. Pain, betrayal, and chaos show you quickly that chasing fleeting joy is a trap. What lasts, what endures, what actually protects you is stability. You learn to prioritize what most people dismiss as boring or unremarkable. Predictable routines, clear boundaries, calm thinking, and emotional steadiness became your foundation. You realized that life isn't a highlight reel. It's a series of challenges, surprises, and tests. If you chase only happiness, you collapse every time something shifts. But if you chase stability, you survive every shift without losing your center. That stability doesn't mean you suppress emotions or avoid joy. It means your emotional state isn't hostage to circumstance. You operate from a calm, grounded place, and that gives you power. People around you notice this, even if they don't understand it. They see someone who doesn't react to drama, who doesn't overcommit emotionally, who doesn't panic when life throws chaos. They think it's luck or detachment, but it's far more deliberate. You've designed your inner world to withstand shocks. While others chase highs, you move quietly, purposefully, steadily, building a life that cannot be shaken by external forces. This shift changes how the world interacts with you. People who once pulled you into arguments, manipulations, or toxic energy can't reach you in the same way. Your calm presence becomes a shield. You don't need constant validation because your stability is self-generated. You don't bend to drama because stability is stronger than excitement. And you don't just survive, you thrive quietly, building resilience that outlasts every temporary joy or fear the world tries to impose. By chasing stability instead of happiness, you mastered something most never even consider. You didn't just recover from the valley, you created an inner life so solid that chaos passes around you, noise bounces off, and you remain unshaken, untouchable, and undeniably grounded. Number 12, your resilience came from acceptance, not positivity. Most people think surviving hardship is about staying positive, smiling through pain, or pretending everything is fine. That's what books, social media, and motivational speeches tell us. But the truth you learned in the valley is far tougher, far deeper, and far rarer. Resilience doesn't come from forcing optimism. It comes from ruthless, uncompromising acceptance of reality. You survived not by pretending the valley wasn't brutal, but by admitting fully how brutal it was. You didn't sugarcoat, you didn't make excuses, and you didn't soften the pain. You looked at it squarely, named it, felt it, and then decided to keep moving anyway. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean resigning to failure or surrendering to defeat. It means seeing the situation clearly, understanding what is within your control and what isn't, and focusing all your energy where it actually matters. That mindset allows a person to act decisively without being weighed down by denial, anger, or wishful thinking. When everyone else is caught up wishing things were different, you're already building the next step. That's why your recovery looks unnatural to outsiders. It's steady, precise, and free from the distractions of complaining, doubting, or railing against reality. Most people confuse resilience with toughness or positivity, but real resilience is quiet. It's disciplined. It's the ability to endure what others can't even face emotionally. You didn't survive by cheering yourself on with slogans or forcing smiles. You survived by seeing everything exactly as it was, letting the pain teach you, and refusing to let it define you. Acceptance made you untouchable in subtle ways. It allowed you to move through the valley without panic, without resentment, and without hesitation. You didn't waste time wishing for shortcuts or alternatives. You adapted, recalibrated, and kept building. Positivity might make people feel better temporarily, but acceptance makes them unstoppable. That's why, when others look at you, they don't see someone who got lucky or stayed motivated. They see someone who faced the worst and came out anchored, unshakable, and quietly victorious. Number 13. You stopped trying to fit into places that never fit you. The valley has a way of showing you the truth about where you belong and, more importantly, where you don't. Before, you may have spent years forcing yourself into spaces, relationships, and roles that felt comfortable to others but never truly aligned with who you are. You bent, adjusted, and compromised endlessly, hoping to be accepted, hoping to belong, hoping to matter. That effort exhausted you. It drained your energy, clouded your judgment, and slowed your growth. The valley stripped all that away. It revealed the futility of trying to belong where you were never meant to. At first, it stings. Realizing that certain doors will never open for you, that some people will never understand you, that some environments are fundamentally incompatible with your essence. It can feel like rejection. But the difference is, you didn't collapse under that truth. Instead, you embraced it. You stopped shrinking yourself to fit into molds that never worked. And that decision changed everything. You stopped apologizing for who you are and started moving toward what actually serves you. That shift isn't dramatic or flashy, but it's lethal to limitations. When you stop forcing yourself into spaces that reject you, life begins to align naturally. Opportunities come that are meant for you. People show up who resonate with your energy, and environments support your growth rather than drain it. You didn't just survive the valley, you recalibrated your sense of belonging. You realized that being in the wrong place, no matter how prestigious or comfortable, is wasted energy. Being in the right place, even if it's quiet, hard, or lonely at first, allows your life to expand in ways you never imagined. This is why your presence now unsettles others. You move with a sense of alignment they can't fake or replicate. You are no longer chasing approval or fitting into patterns that don't serve you. You operate on your own truth, and that independence gives you an aura of quiet authority and unstoppable momentum. By leaving behind what never fit, you became free to build a life that actually fits you, and nothing can touch that freedom. Number 14, you didn't recover. You became someone who can't be destroyed the same way twice. Recovery implies returning to a previous state, like patching a broken vase and placing it back on the shelf. But that's not what happened to you. The valley didn't just challenge you, hurt you, or push you to your limits. It fundamentally changed you. The old version of yourself, the one who cried, panicked, doubted, or depended on others, no longer exists. That person couldn't survive the valley. What came out on the other side is something far stronger, sharper, and far more calculated. You didn't just heal. You evolved in a way that prevents the same destruction from ever touching you again. The difference is subtle but undeniable. Most people face trauma and try to patch themselves back together, hoping life will be gentler next time. You didn't. You dissected the pain, studied it, absorbed the lessons it offered, and allowed it to reshape your mind, your choices, and your instincts. The version of you who walks through the world now operates with precision and awareness that your old self could never comprehend. Threats, betrayals, manipulations, They no longer catch you off guard. The same things that once would have shattered you now glance off your armor without leaving a mark. What makes this extraordinary is how quiet and invisible it is. No one claps for this kind of transformation. There's no applause for becoming untouchable, no headlines for evolving past your former vulnerabilities. But it is far more powerful than any visible victory. You carry the valley's lessons in your instincts, your discernment, your emotional independence, and your strategic thinking. You can't be destroyed the same way twice because you've already seen the blueprint of destruction, survived it, and built a stronger version in response. People who watch you now are often baffled. They assume luck, help, or privilege carried you through, but they don't see the internal reconstruction. The valley didn't just pass, it redesigned you. You're no longer reactive, fragile, or predictable. You're someone who can endure, adapt, and rise with a kind of precision that looks unnatural to anyone who hasn't walked through what you've walked through. The old rules no longer apply. The same attack, the same betrayal, the same pain. It won't work twice, because you aren't the person you were. You're something entirely new. Conclusion. The valley doesn't just test people. It exposes them. It strips away illusions, comfort, and weakness, and it forces a confrontation with raw reality. Most people walk through it broken, bitter, or diminished. But you walk through it differently. You weren't just strong or lucky. You observed instead of panicking. You accepted instead of pretending. You shed false identities, stopped seeking validation, and built a self that is precise, untouchable, and unshakable. Every betrayal, every loss, every moment that should have crushed you instead became a tool, a lesson, a step in the process of transforming you into someone the world cannot predict, cannot control, and cannot break in the same way again. You didn't just recover, you evolved. You became someone who thrives in solitude, reads silence like a language, and acts with a calm authority that confuses others. You stopped chasing fleeting happiness and began chasing stability, built resilience from acceptance, and stopped trying to fit where you were never meant to belong. You emerged from the valley not merely intact, but refined, upgraded, and untouchable. What people see now is only the surface, a quiet confidence, a composed presence, a steady mind. What they don't see is the depth of transformation, the strategic intelligence, and the unwavering independence that made this version of you possible. That's why your story resonates so deeply. It's not a tale of luck, miracles, or temporary triumphs. It's proof that a person can endure unthinkable hardship, confront the rawest truths of life, and emerge operating on a completely new level, sharper, wiser, and far beyond what most will ever imagine. You've become the embodiment of resilience in its purest, most refined form. The valley didn't just pass you through. It sculpted you into someone whose survival defies logic, whose presence commands attention, and whose future is unbound by the rules that once held others down. If this video spoke to you, if you recognized yourself in any of these truths, don't just watch and move on. Subscribe to the channel for more deep, unfiltered insights that reveal the hidden mechanics of survival, power, and transformation. Like this video to support the journey of uncovering reality as it really is. Share it with someone who needs this level of clarity. And comment below with your own story of what the valley taught you. Let's build a community of those who didn't just survive, but leveled up in ways the world can't understand. Your journey matters, your voice matters, and together we rise stronger than ever. God bless you.